Good afternoon. I'm Dusty Holman-Sprague with the Maine Women's Lobby, and I am thrilled to have Tara Williams from the Maine AEYC here with me. For folks who are in the room, please go ahead and feel free to chat us your questions. If you're watching us on the live stream, you can go ahead and chat questions over there as well, and we'll make sure to get those to Tara. And we are also hoping to hear today from Rita Furlow from the Maine Children's Alliance. So, and here's Rita joining us in the space. So Tara, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and the AEYC?
Sure. Hi, my name's Tara Williams. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Association for the Education of Young Children. We're an organization that focuses on birth to third grade and supporting those who care for and educate children.
Great, thank you so much. And it looks like Rita is having some slower technical work. So we'll have her introduce herself when she joins, which will be shortly, I'm sure. So we're here today to talk about childcare, which I think has been the thing on everybody's minds during the pandemic, or at least everybody who is engaged in the kind of work that we're in. The pandemic has really revealed all of the faults in our system around that. And the Right from the Start Coalition, I know, is a coalition that you've been a part of for a long time. Do you want to talk just a little bit about the Right from the Start Coalition before we jump into this?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't mention that in introducing myself, that I'm one of the co-leads on that coalition, along with Rita Furlow and Kim Russell. And we came together, well, I think really some foundations in Maine, along with advocacy and policy partners, started talking about this in 2016, and the coalition formed in 2017, really as a way to bring together a lot of partners cross-sector, from business leaders to law enforcement to nonprofit organizations and parents and early childhood educators and staff, all to work together to move forward issues related to young children and families. And there's Rita.
Super. Hi, Rita. Glad you could make it. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and the Maine Children's Alliance?
Yes. Hi, my name is Rita Furlow, and I'm the Senior Policy Analyst at the Maine Children's Alliance, and we are a nonprofit that is guided by data to advocate for the needs of children and their families.
Great, thank you. Wonderful. All right, so we've heard from both of you your intros and heard a little bit about the Right from the Start Coalition, and we're going to talk about two of the key priorities for that coalition this year. Two different bills, neither have LD numbers yet. They both have LRs, and Elena will drop them into the chat for you. But where should we start? Which one do you want to start on? Because they're really a nice complement to each other. So.
Let's start with Senator Jackson's. I think Rita's going to share about that.
Great.
Yeah, great. So yeah, as you may have heard, that this is a bill that was submitted last session. We're doing a few changes in this next version, but it is a bill that's based on a model out of Skowhegan. It's based on something called a Early Head Start Childcare Partnership model, which is federal grants have been distributed all across the country to have Head Start agencies try to create some innovative models, and particularly with younger children, infants and toddlers in particular. So Katie Cap and Educare Central Maine ended up having a successful grant and developed a program in coordination with the Maine Early Learning Investment Group, which came together a number of years ago. And really the leadership for that was a wonderful man. Many of you may know Steve Rowe, who's at the Community Foundation and former Speaker of the House and Attorney General, who's had a passion for early childhood issues for years. So he founded that business leader group, and they were very interested in this model and helped to provide support for it as well. So the model's been around maybe 6 or 7 years now, but it brings Head Start into working with both center-based and family childcare. So it helps to really kind of bring the best of Head Start into family childcare, center-based care. It helps with significant coaching to help with quality, to help providers increase their professional development. And so it also brings in, right, the wonderful health supports, nutrition, screening, all the great things that Head Start does so well. It increases staff and provider pay and increases quality for children. And so we are all very, very excited about the model and expanding it into other parts of Maine. So that's sort of an overview of the program, and it's really driven as well by communities, and would bring communities together to apply for these grants. So we would need to have, right, local local centers, school districts are another key part of the program, and another element. So community members would come together, do a needs assessment, and really figure out what they in particular need. And home visiting is another aspect that can be an element as well. So communities would apply for these grants and then build up these programs, and they have this wonderful model that was developed in Skowhegan to look to. So
great, that's exciting. I have questions about that, but let's go ahead and hear from the other bill. So that one is LR 1625, correct? An act to create early care and education program to support healthy development and school success, sponsored by Senator President Jackson.
Right, right.
So let's then hear from Tara about the other bill, which is focused on workforce.
Yes, so this other bill, and as you mentioned, it doesn't have an LD number yet, but is LR 514, Speaker Ryan Fecto's bill, called An Act to Build a Childcare System by Recruiting and Retaining Maine's Early Childhood Workforce. And these two bills really do complement each other. They focus on different but important aspects of how we really build this early childhood system and early and childcare system that we know that Maine needs. So this one is focused on a few different things that all help with career pathways and supporting early childhood educators who work in childcare programs. I think a core of that is the salary supplements that are in the bill. They're provided twice a year on a tiered scale that rewards both experience and credentials and degrees earned in early childhood education. And the other elements of the bill focus on, as I mentioned, so career pathways, meaning that there's support for career and technical education so that you as even a young adult and high school student can begin your path in early childhood education. There's increased funding to expand apprenticeship programs that would be for staff working in childcare programs in Maine, and elements of that really are there to also provide for pathways for those who may be multilingual or new arrivals to Maine and coming from other countries where this can be sometimes a more open path into the field. And then also to grow Maine's Teach Scholarship program and to just add more funding to be able to provide more scholarships for teachers working in childcare to be able to earn both associate's and bachelor's degrees. And it's a really great comprehensive scholarship because they can graduate without student debt.
Great. What I like about these two bills together is that they complement both the experience that kids and families are having, but also the other side around the childcare workforce. As an organization that talks and thinks about gender equity, we know that it's not only women and families and people who are thinking about childcare and the access and the experience of the family are having, but also that the field is overwhelmingly dominated by women. And so it really is it's a workforce issue that speaks to gender equity as well. So
definitely, yes. It's something that I think, while, and I worked directly in the classroom and in childcare for several years, and while we would welcome many more men to join the field, it's just not the current reality. It's a field that's 99% women across the country. And I also think to point out that it's often women of color doing this work as well. And, we have this dichotomy between women who are nurturing and facilitating learning for our state's youngest children, doing really important complex work, but then their working conditions just create real financial insecurity. Sometimes that follows them through their life into, being older adults. And we often don't talk about how that can really influence and even jeopardize their ability to work effectively with children.
Mm. Right, and that's so closely linked with what we know about women in general in caregiving roles who are, underpaid and living with economic insecurity. And it's really the backbone of our workforce.
Yes, we had there was a report released in the United States yesterday about the early childhood education workforce. It comes out every year or two. And they talked in there about how we have a really historic and pervasive undervaluing of labor by women, and especially women of color. And that trend in the United States is one of the reasons that this early education workforce is just, one of the most underpaid in our country. I don't know if this is a good time, but I was hoping to share a quick quote from it because I think it just speaks so well to gender equity. I can go ahead. All right. So they said in this report that continuing to pay early educators poverty level wages out of an expectation that women, especially women of color, will continue to do this work for, in parentheses, almost free, either out of a love for children or because they have few other options, perpetuates sexism, racism, and classism in the United States. And disrupting historical notions of early education and care as unskilled and of little value requires social recognition of early educators' crucial contributions and a reimagining of the entire early care and education system. I just want to walk around with that on a sign.
It doesn't fit on a bumper sticker, but it's everything, isn't it? I'm really glad that you shared that. Thank you.
Yeah, any of you who want to look into this further, I can't, I agree with Tara, and it's a wonderful report that comes out every year from folks at Berkeley who've been studying, right?
Great.
We'll
see if we can drop the link over in the chat and certainly on our live stream thread as well. Right, so we know workers are underpaid, but we also know that so many families, most families, it seems, are struggling to afford childcare, to access it and then to afford it. That brings me to one of the questions in the chat, which I think is probably oriented toward you, Rita, about the wraparound model and community-centric model that you're talking about. What are the known challenges or issues with that model that you faced, and how can we address those moving forward? Or are there things that are already in this particular bill that address some of those challenges?
Well, right, what you just described, Christy, is right, sort of the classic, thing that it makes no sense to people. How is it that childcare is so expensive, and yet all these women who are doing this work are, practically being paid poverty level wages, right? This is a service that that we need to start viewing as a public good, the way we view public schools as a public good, right? We just can't continue to have this burden just on the back of parents to pay, you know, they can't afford it. And we know that if we want to keep people in this field, we have to start paying them a living wage. So that is going to cost money, and that is by far the biggest hurdle and challenge that we are going to face going forward with all of these proposals is right, that we have just not ever invested as a country the way we need to, right? Compared to all other developing countries, we are just so far behind. And so we've got to start recognizing that we have to make that financial investment. And that is right. And unfortunately, in a year where the economy is challenging in Maine, it's going to be tough. But we're going to keep pushing and trying to have people understand the importance that this just can't continue. We are going to keep losing, you know, women from this field. They're just not going to stay. So, or they're not going to join it at all if we don't very soon make some significant changes. So, yeah. So I think that is one of our biggest, by far our biggest challenge.
Yeah, and I think it's so important you brought that up, Rita, because while there will be fiscal notes on these bills, right? This costs money. These bills are not comprehensive in reshaping the whole system, right? We're not trying to build new childcare programs across the whole state with just this one bill, or we're not able to provide wage parity for early educators with this one bill, but they're both laying the foundation. They're both the steps that are needed. And so I think it's really tough sometimes when you're sitting in this advocacy position of knowing so much more is needed and knowing that it doesn't feel like you're really asking for that much, but it is viewed sometimes as too much or too expensive. And we see that particularly when it comes to talking about compensation. You know, it comes up over and over. I know even probably for Rita longer than I've been sitting around the tables, right? It just comes up and then it's like, well, it's too expensive and it's too hard to do. We'll do it next time. We'll do it in a few years. And it really, the lack of enough affordable childcare and enough people to do the work is not just an inevitable thing. It's the policy decisions we're making. It's the way we're choosing to spend our money that's leading to this. So if we want to see these changes in our state, we have to find a way to bring more public funding and just to make the hard decisions that allow us to move this forward.
And I think the recent change, which of course we are totally supportive of, to increase the salary levels of K-12 teachers, right? I think that really brought home for so many early childhood folks, because that's where they often lose people and staff too, is they end up saying, you know, I can work over here and make $15,000, $20,000 more. I mean, how can any of us really blame them? And so I really think that has highlighted for so many people in the field that, you know, things just have to change, or we're just going to keep losing folks to public school, and just people.
We don't want this to become a childcare versus public school, right? It should be childcare and public school, that we're all in this one, you know, sector and education pathway from birth to career that can be aligned and work together. And it's something I think, you know, we can almost build the systems in a way that they work even better together than they do now. But I think, you know, when you said that, Rita, it's just, I think it surprises people. I've heard particularly an assumption that there's the reason that they're paid so differently must have to do with different training or different degrees. And really, and that's one of the things I know, I shared the link about this workforce report that they show, and they have these great state profiles. And when you pull up Maine's, it says in there that Maine early educators, if they're working in childcare with a bachelor's degree, they're paid 25% less than their colleagues with a bachelor's degree in the K-8 system. So it's really good because it shows that the disparities, it's not about training, it's about really just the way we fund it and the inequities that creates.
Wow. In terms of these particular bills, so you mentioned funding is a key challenge because it's always hard to figure out how to expand state investment into programming. Are there other, challenges that you think folks should know about, or, alternately, are there real opportunities here in this session for these bills?
Well, we have, over the last couple of years, seen the Right from the Start Coalition really grow with a lot of diverse, folks around the table. The business community really recognizes what a huge issue this has become as over the last year, parents are bringing their children, to the job with them sometimes because they can't find care. And so I think employers are really recognizing the importance of this in a new way, and they have been supportive. Chamber of Commerce is involved in this coalition. So we are going to need to really convince a large number of folks to come with us and request significant funding for this.
I think there's also the opportunity that we have to build off of some work that was done in Maine, both before COVID and during. So really looking at the state's 10-year economic plan and the work of the Economic Recovery Committee, all of this awareness around childcare, I'm sure must have played a role in this, but it was just wonderful to see that acknowledged in both of those reports that came out about how it's of course important for young children and for families, but also important for our economy and the future of our state, that it's just a necessary investment. So I think we can, build off of that as well.
Right, as long as people think about it as something that families need to solve for themselves, we're not going to make the change in the public perception. And while I think that we should be investing in things families need, the framing of it as something that the workforce needs might be the thing that gets us over the top.
What also in terms of challenges, one of the things that I just was thinking about is, the people who could in so many ways have the strongest voice are also the people who are, in the midst of raising toddlers. And we all know from lack of sleep and, just hoping to get a shower or, do the laundry, that then trying to think about spending a lot of time figuring out the legislative process and doing advocacy, right? It's usually not folks' top priorities. So that is another challenge that we have, is that the parents who really desperately need this are so just overwhelmed trying to get through the day that it's hard for them to do the kind of advocacy
and they get to take this big sigh and relief. Their kids turn 5, they go to kindergarten. It's like, I don't have to budget for this anymore. I'm not strained financially. It's like now the system is fully there to support, me and my family. And it's so unfortunate that it has become this for so long that you kind of just survive that phase of your life rather than, I think as a parent, you don't even, at least for me, I didn't even realize then that there's a whole public system that I could reshape that would make it different. It was more like I have to figure it out myself.
Right. Well, I have to just take a tiny pause to highlight our citizen advocacy page on our website, because we have a range of mini videos, like 2-3 minute videos, like how to navigate the legislative website, and so for people who are just beginning that journey to think about how they can help or participate in in that work, these are some nice introductory tools. And so for people who do want to follow along with these bills, what should people know, or where should they go to find out more?
So I think that Stephanie posted a little bit ago a bill tracker that's available right on our website. And there is a Right from the Start web page, and folks can send an email through that, which will connect to all of us. And yeah, and we'd love to have folks wanting to help us move these bills forward. So
I would say too, if there's someone out there who is listening or hears about these bills and wants to get involved, but maybe they themselves don't feel ready to testify or to get involved in that way at a public hearing, even starting by raising awareness in your community, talking to your neighbors, talking to your mom, son, whoever it is about it, can just help to bring up an understanding that we need to focus on childcare, we need to focus on the workforce. And then a next level up might be to just look up who your own state legislator is and send them an email and raise awareness with your own legislators as this, ahead of this bill coming up. I think that would be a really wonderful way to get involved.
Mm. I think sometimes people discount the value of reaching out to their legislators, or, they think, oh, they hear from a bunch of people, but I don't think that's true. And I think particularly proactive outreach to a legislator, before a bill is really hot or before it's getting a lot of public attention, just to say, hey, childcare really matters to me. And I heard that there's this plan for, workforce or for this wraparound care. So like when that comes up, I care about it.
Yeah. Before I got involved in policy and advocacy as a job, when I was working in a childcare program, I emailed my state rep for the first time, and he emailed me back, and I gave my phone number in the email signature, and he called the next week. And I had no idea that a legislator would just reach out and call, and we talked on his cell phone, and it was really amazing to feel that connected. So I would definitely encourage people to reach out, because our legislators are very accessible here in Maine.
Yeah, it's true. We are very lucky to have, some people don't like the size of the Maine legislature because they think there are just too many of them. But really, in terms of outreach and being in touch with constituents, it really is advantageous that we have like about what 8,000 people per House district, and so they are really accessible, and they will just have a phone call with you or a cup of coffee, and or you can bring together a group of parents that have similar interests and issues, and have a conversation with them. And as you said, Testy, I think that they don't hear from constituents as often as many of us assume. And sometimes just 5, 6, 7 phone calls or emails can really grab their attention. So
I do, before we end, I noticed in the chat a comment about childcare being further complicated for kids with disabilities. References a son who's autistic and has, special dietary needs, and how challenging that is. And so I would just sort of end with saying, childcare is a really complex issue that addresses, workforce and special needs and, all of these different areas. So as you both said, these bills are not going to solve the problem, but I appreciate what you said, that it is laying the foundation to move us all forward in thinking about it like a public good.
Yeah, and I can't agree more. It's just such an added difficulty if your child has a disability, has special needs, and so trying to find the right fit is even more of a challenge. And yeah, it's It's not easy. And I think that, that Tara would tell you that providers often, that is what they really desire, additional training and assistance with is working with kids with disabilities.
Great. Well, I thank you both for being here. I appreciate it. We'll continue to lift up these bills and do the work that we can. And I'm so happy that we had the chance to learn from both of you today.
Thank you.
I'll close with a comment in the chat. Education is a public good and childcare is a public good. So thanks, Ginger, and thanks to all of you.